Welcome to the Zeducation Leadership Podcast, where we bring stories, advice, and insights from world-class leaders right to you. Welcome to the Zeducation Leadership Podcast. I believe that when leaders level up, everybody wins. Their team, their family, their community, and even themselves. December 2024, a walk, a question to God, and a whisper she didn't even see coming. I'm going to teach you how to lead. That's the voice she heard. Lesieli Oliver had built a business, a community, a role, and a family from the outside, and it was all working, but her body had stopped. Her joy had gone, and the people who needed her the most, she had drifted from them. This is the leadership gap that nobody trains you for. How to lead yourself when you're the one falling apart. Lesieli, the founder and CEO of Lalanga and the first Pacific person elected to the Franklin Local Board, her story is where today's episode begins. And what she found on the other side will give you a new way to lead yourself when you need it the most. Lesieli Oliver, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good, thank you. Malo apito, and it's awesome to join you again.
Awesome. It's good to have you back. I think the last time we spoke, you weren't in politics. All right. We were talking about it, but now you're in politics. So pretty cool and excited to talk more about your journey and I guess like what your experience is like being in politics, especially being the first Pacifica female in Franklin to be elected on the board. So that's pretty cool. But look, we like to start off our episode with adding value to our audience. So my icebreaker question is, what's one thing you believe about leadership that most people disagree with?
Sorry, how do I... when I was younger, like in my early 20s, learning about leadership, I went to a lot of Western books and big leaders, mostly from America, to learn leadership. John C. Maxwell's one of them. But now being a bit older and a bit wiser, I think leadership now and the leadership that we need, the values and the principles come from our cultural heritage and our values and our spiritual values. And so that's what I believe now is it's more spiritual and cultural and more important these days in our leadership to go back to the roots of where we came from and where we learned how to be leaders.
Beautiful. I love it. That's what I love about this podcast, this platform. We have different guests and they show up, they bring their experience, their stories, but they also bring a different perspective and lens to leadership. And I love that leadership, looking at it from a spiritual or cultural sense as well. So let's start with your story. Our audience loves people's stories. I think, if we learn about leadership, the best lessons come from like hearing about people's stories, the struggles, challenges, their purpose, their motivation, everything. Okay, so pretty much start wherever you want, but take us back to where Lalanga began.
I would say Lalanga began when I was a child. So I am the daughter to Ase and Elisiva Moala. Both my parents left school before the age of 12. They were uneducated. I was born in Tonga in a small village called Tatakamotonga. And being born to uneducated parents, they knew when I was born and my sister that if we stayed in the islands, we would go back into the poverty cycle. So my dad's a talented musician and he had a vision to come to New Zealand. He knew that we needed to come to New Zealand to be educated. So he got a brass band scholarship to New Zealand, and that was our ticket to coming here. Grew up moved here just before I turned 5, went to school, but I always knew growing up that the vision my parents had for me was education. And so fast forward, went through school, graduated with a university degree, got married, had 4 kids, and then in 2020, we just went into COVID lockdown. And I remember sitting there on the couch, so frustrated, just looking at the media that Māori and Pacifica kids were still experiencing the same struggles and challenges that I felt like I had gone through when I was a teenager. And when I was looking at the headlines, I started looking at my life thinking, wow, that was the old me, but that's not me anymore. I started looking at my life and realized that I had achieved everything my parents wanted me to. University degree, married, we own our own home, no longer living in poverty. I mean, wasn't filthy rich, but definitely wasn't living in the poverty that we knew. And I started asking myself, how did I get here? And how am I living my definition of success and living out the dreams my parents had for me? And realized that it was nothing to do with me. It was about all the people that had helped me along the way. Mentors, teachers, family members, resources that people had given me to enable that success. And so that's when I remembered the value and the concept of Lalanga. And it took me back to growing up, watching my mum and my grandmothers when they'd get around together, and Lalanga. So Lalanga is a Tongan word metaphor for weaving. And they would all have strands, and they'd always all bring them together, and they'd all weave it. And out of this person's strand and this person's strand, they would complete what is precious to us, which is goloa, so like a fala. And at that same time, a few days later, I remember sitting on the couch just scrolling on my phone because we were in the middle of the lockdown. And up pops on my Facebook newsfeed a post from the Ministry of Education. And it basically said, we've just launched a COVID Innovation Fund. We're looking for Māori and Pacific people to start some initiatives to help our Māori and Pacifica kids re-engage with school. And they've got so many challenges: attendance, engagement, well-being. Do you have an idea? Apply to us, tell us what it is, and we will see if we can fund it. And so I didn't have an idea at the time, but I was I wanted to do something. Like, I knew I had something that I could share. And so I sat there thinking, what can I do? What can I do? And I thought, actually, one thing that really helped me succeed was mentoring. So I put together this concept and said, if you fund me, I will start this mentoring program, and I'll start it in one high school, and it will be called Lalanga, because I believe as people get together and bring their resources and their skills and experience, that's how we enable our Māori and Pacifica kids to succeed. So I then put together my application, and I remember when I put together the application, I was so scared of failing, scared of what is the person going to say on the other side. And it took me like a month to put it all together. And by God's miracle, there were thousands of people that applied, and I was one of the few, like 100 projects to get selected. So that's how Lalanga started. I just wanted to start one mentoring program reaching 60 kids.
That's amazing. Well, what do you think made your proposal stand out amongst the thousands?
I think my connection to the problem. Do you know one thing that I think Māori and Pacific see as a weakness that is actually a strength out there is our problems, our trials, our struggles, our poverty. This is actually a real strength, because I think that's one of the lacks of leadership right now, is they're trying to fix problems that they have no lived experience or no empathetic connection to. And I think with that program, I know what it's like to be on the other side. I know what it's like to be poor. I know what it's like to be struggling. I know what it's like to have academic challenges. But I also know what it's like to have people give you a helping hand and resources and get around you, and how that can actually empower your success. And so I was speaking from someone who's been there in that position, but now I'm on the other side of success. And so I know the model works. And I think the connection to the problem, understanding the solution, and understanding, and also I think it took a bit of savviness, understanding what is the ministry actually asking for. I think that's probably one of the reasons success, and I think just God's timing and purpose.
I love that. I think coming back to leadership, that there's a great lesson in what you just shared there, is never underestimate your lived experience, like the struggles, the trials, how you overcame it, what you've learned, how you've changed, all of that is an asset, right? It's a powerful thing that you could share, or a tool that you could use to lead other people, right? Because people can't relate to perfection. Mm-hmm. They can only relate to a human, right? So a human who's gone through what I've gone through understands my problem, right? There's nothing more powerful than that. I like what you said in your journey when you looked back. You're like, man, I'm happy. I've got a family. I've got a house. I'm educated. Got qualifications. I've achieved my parents' dream. Like how did I get here? I didn't get here by myself. There were people, a community, mentors. Who were those people that mentored or guided you? And talking to our audience, where can they surround themselves, or where can they go to get that kind of support?
I was really privileged to have two visionary parents. Do you know, a value that I've really been reflecting on a lot lately is how we come from a visionary people. If we go back to wayfinding and the way that we left our island, like we couldn't even keep still. You know, we didn't have a way to go from Tonga and explore and come to this country, but we found a way because we had a vision. And the thing is, we had a vision, but I mean, even though we were skilled in knowing our waters in the ocean, there was a whole lot of things that they did not know, a lot of unknowns. And so we have that visionary spirit in us, the dreamers, the knowing that this is where we are now, but there is something better, that I can have better and that I deserve better. And I guess I'm so grateful that I had visionary parents. That even in their uneducated, poor lives, they knew that there was better. And so they always held me accountable. I knew, like we talk about academic standards, I was so scared of failing academically. Like, do you remember back in the days we used to sit school C? And I remember this experience I had because I'm the oldest, so everything was on me. Do you know, like, there was just no excuses to fail. I saw my parents getting up and working the factory jobs, and with School C, what happens is that you sit the exam, and then you sit the exam, and then there's one day in January where you go to the mailbox and you get the results, right? And I just remember that the vision for my parents, like there was no excuses. They had a vision for me for education. They had a vision for me for money. They had a vision for my life and my family. My mum, I joke about this now, but I married a beautiful, godly Balangi man. But my mum told me that I was going to marry him like 5 years before I had even like had any kind of relationship with him.
Him specifically?
Him specifically.
Okay, all right.
So,
You got to tell us more.
So so let me finish off that visionary. My parents, I had teachers, like I had some incredible Pacific teachers. There's just one teacher in high school, without her I would never have got through high school. And she held me accountable. Like she was both loving and both firm. So I had a lot of great teachers. This teacher would see me standing at the dairy up at Aggs, and she'd stop the car because one day I was talking to a boy from St. Paul's at the dairy, and I remember her stopping, you know, at the dairy, winding down her window and saying, "Lesieli, if your dad knew you were talking to that boy, he'd get so angry. You better get to school before my car gets to school. Otherwise, I'm getting on my phone to your dad." So I quickly stopped talking to him and ran to school. The same teacher, her name's Mrs. Va Anisi. On the weekends, she had a whole group of Pacific music students. On the weekends, she would take us to her home, because we were behind in our assessments. We needed extra work. So during the week and on the weekends, she'd call our parents and say, "I need to take all the girls home." So she'd take us to our home. She would cook dinner for all of us, put her kids to bed, and then she'd sit up at the table with us doing her schoolwork. So she was incredible. I've had scholarships. Even now, I've had lots of people from different cultures, different backgrounds who have been willing to help me in some kind of ways. So I've always had really great people around me and been really blessed. But we come from visionary people. My mum, my dad's very visionary. So what happened is that I became a Christian and joined this Christian group at university. And there was this boy, my mum came to church one day and she saw a ton of people. And she saw this boy called Daniel Oliver. And one day, I was like 21, and I just woken up literally out of bed, walking in the lounge with my pajamas on, and she says, "I had a dream." I said, "What?" And she said, "I had a dream. I had a dream that you are going to marry." And I said, "Mum, don't say it. I don't want to know." And she said, "I had a dream that you are going to marry Daniel Oliver." And I was like, "Mum, I don't even like white boys. Like, I don't even talk to the guy. And the guy's so proud and arrogant, and he is just not my vibe, Mum. Like, there's literally no way." And he said, no, I saw you in my dream. I saw him, and I believe this must be God. And I was like, this crazy lady with all these spiritual things. Even to this day, she'll call me and say, "I had a dream," you know. And then 2 years later, we were engaged and married. So we come from a very visionary people.
Oh, that was, all of that happened before Tinder and that even exists today. Yeah, right. Your mum was the matchmaker, a wing person there. I love it. What I love about that experience, coming back to your Lalanga framework and your organization, your business, the whole concept of weaving together. right? There is no mat if there is no weaving. And I just think about like, there is no us if there is no support. You know, that weaving of support from other people. Talk about that teacher that went over and beyond for you. Like, you know, a lot of respectful teachers who do that, who go over and beyond, you know?
Absolutely.
So I love that. Tell us about the Franklin Local Board. You're the first Pacific wahine even to be elected on the Franklin Local Board. Tell us about that experience. Why did you go for it? And what is it like now that you've been in there for how long now? How long you been?
7 months.
7 months. Yeah.
So Franklin Local Board. So I studied politics at university. I was a student president of my university, worked for politicians, and so I've always enjoyed politics, right? And it's always been like, should I go into politics? But the timing has never been right. And I've been asked lots of times to stand for different political parties, but it just hasn't been the right time and season for me. And for about the last 9 years, the Team Franklin has been asking me, do you want to stand with us? Do you want to stand with us? And every 3 years they'll message me and I'll say, oh, no, not this time. I'm not ready. And so I had a big change in 2024. And then one day my sister called me. I just come out of hospital and she said, oh my gosh, Team Franklin is looking for someone to join their team. That's you. Fill out the application form. So I was like, I literally just had surgery yesterday. I don't even know what day it is. And she said, come on, fill it out. You have to join. So then I found the application form. I filled it out and I was like, right, you guys have been chasing me. I think I'm ready now. This is a good time for me. I filled out the application form, sent it, and then I get a message back from the leader saying, I'm really sorry, Lesieli, but we actually closed the applications 2 days ago, so you're late, and we can't accept your application because we've got a rigorous process, and I'm really sorry, but maybe next time. So then I messaged back and I said, oh, come on, man, it's Pukekohe. It's not like it's like the National Party, you know, and you know me. And they said, oh, sorry, but we've just got to keep to our strict processes. So I said, okay, sweet. I tested it. I asked God, is it meant to be? And it obviously isn't, so I can get on with my life. Then they went through their process, and then 2 weeks later, I get a message from them, and someone said, hey, we went through the process. We haven't found our person. Can you come in for an interview? So I said, okay. So then I went to the interview, and then the next day they said, okay, yes, you're our person. Would you want to stand with us? So I said, okay, yeah, sure, I will. I don't really think much about it. I think that's kind of my vibe and the way I lead my life is I don't think too much about stuff. I just step out there and try it. If God doesn't want it to happen, He won't let it happen, right? And so I put my name forward. And in reflection, looking back, I had no idea, I think, what kind of leadership it would require of me and what kind of experience I would have in it, but also the history of this place and how much I would have to carry that and just the challenges that I've never experienced before. If I was going to be really honest, in my heart, right now, I'm actually ready to give up. Not so much give up because I quit, but it's actually maybe not physically it's tough, but spiritually and systemically, and there's a lot of challenges. You know, working with people that have different leadership and qualities and leadership styles to you. Auckland Council is a massive organisation. I love finding a problem, working on a solution and fixing it, like very quickly. Whereas with Auckland Council, change takes a long time and they've got these big processes and it's a massive organisation with like 14,000 people. And so in my mind, the fight is always, well, I could just go out there in my normal work and just change one life by creating one solution and changing that life. But even though there have been many times where I've wanted to give up, I think in terms of outcomes and improving our people, I really just need to stick at it and stay there.
Yeah, we need you there. And there's a lot of us that believe in you, that support you, and very proud of you.
Thank you so much.
We by no means believe that it's easy, but we do believe that, you know, you're there for a reason.
Thank you so much.
So you have our support for sure. Auckland Council is a big beast, and it's not like to point fingers or anything. It is what it is. When it comes to change, especially at a big scale, at a community or regional, it can take a while. Yeah, I mean, I get the same vibe too. I can go out there and just do it myself. My team are already, we're almost got 100 people into jobs in the last 2 years, and we've helped a lot of people buy their first homes. Like, we're already making an impact. Like, why can't we do this at a bigger scale? But like knowing what you know now and the circumstances, especially for those who are considering a career in politics, what's your advice around navigating this space, especially from a leadership perspective?
We just talked about this before I came on, right? The struggles and the challenges of our time. I believe that the reason why we are very much negatively impacted by a lot of the things happening right now that are affecting Māori and Pacifica is because there are not enough of us at the table. At the table is where change happens. At the table is where the ideas are wrestled and the ideas are wrestled and the solutions are made and where money gets invested to is decided. So whether I like it or not and whether I find it easy or not, I find it really hard being at the table. I find it really hard being the only brown person, and other people may not get it, but I know brown people get what that's like. It's really important for me to stick it out and to stay there because that's where the decisions are made. And maybe I might not be able to make a difference, but making space and paving the way so that more Māori and Pacific people can come to the table is really important, especially in this area. We can practice leadership, I think, not just at the council level, but there are things we can do in our everyday lives in our community to make a difference, which will make a difference to the lives of ourselves and our kids. School board is one of them, But Auckland Council and being on the local board is great because anybody can stand. Yes.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thanks for that. I definitely believe that. When the door opens for you, opportunities, it's our obligation to hold the door open for others to come through as well, especially the next generation. So I love that. Now, this is something I definitely want to talk about, if you're okay with it. Your experience back in December 2024. You came to a point in your life, things are not going as expected or according to plan, and then something changed. Can you tell us about that experience?
So when I started Lalanga in November 2020, I didn't really have a plan. Like, I knew roughly that we were starting a mentoring program, but I had no idea that it was going to be more than a 6-month program because initially the fund was for 6 months. And then 6 years later, we had moved from running mentoring programs. I had conducted a master's degree based on the problems of Māori and Pacific kids and what digital technology do we need to improve these problems. We were creating curriculum, we were delivering workshops, we were training teachers, we were impacting thousands of kids and teachers and families. And there were other things too. I expected to do the work, but then there was the experience and the learning around managing people because you can't do it all yourself. I had no experience around that. I'm great, I think, at working by myself, but learning how to manage and lead a team is a whole nother board game, right? And then outside of that, you have your own kids and your family. So I think on the outside, achieved a lot. During Lalanga, somehow was named 40 under 40, top 40 under 40 alumni for the University of Auckland. I didn't even know. Someone messaged me on LinkedIn and said, hey, congratulations. You are named one of the 40 under 40 leaders for the University of Auckland.
And you didn't have to apply?
No, I think somebody nominated me.
Oh, right.
Somebody must have nominated me. And I was like, what? I never even knew there was a thing. Asked to speak at things, but on podcasts, awards. But on the other hand, I think as the work grew, my health and well-being started to really suffer. I love hard work. Like, people ask me, what do you love to do for fun? When people ask me that, my husband will jump in and say, she loves to work for fun. Because I do. I just love my work. And I got to this point in December 2020 where the pendulum had swung and my work was just my whole life. people don't know, but to deliver some of our programs, we were sleeping in the office for days because we were printing and creating things. I was sacrificing time with my kids. I could never enjoy a weekend. And because we were just trying to keep up with the demand of delivering our programs. In December 2024, physically, my body started to just show signs that it was just done. Even if mentally and emotionally I was still in the game, physically, I just couldn't get out of bed. And so I remember going for a walk one day and asking God, my work has literally just taken over my life. I had no idea 5 years ago that this is what it would look like. I was managing Lalanga work and everything we were creating, the people that really mattered, our stakeholders, our teachers, our students. Then there was my staff members. Then another thing that nobody talks about that I had never known is to run the whole thing, you need money. So I was managing the funding and looking for future funding and reporting to reporters and thinking, we've got 6 months of money, like, hey, where's the next 6 months? Things like that. So every day I just had so many different things that I was carrying. And I went for this walk in December 2024 and I'd missed a lot of time with my kids. And the sign where I knew something was wrong is that I'd literally get up at like 4 o'clock. I have this thing about getting to work first. I just love getting to work first. I'd be at the office at 6 o'clock. I'd leave them probably about 6 or 7 and I'd get home and I'd literally have nothing left. And I'd literally go to my bed and I'd just lie in bed with the covers. Like, I had no energy for anyone. Didn't even have any energy for my kids. And one day I knew this is not good leadership. There's something wrong here. And I went for this walk and I just started talking to God, saying, God, what's happening here? Like, I need you to speak to me. I'm at this point where you've given me this purpose, but this purpose has just taken over my life. The joy which I'd once known is not there. I'm stressed out to the max. I've put on like 35 kilos and I don't know what to do. And he said to me, now that you know how to lead from the outside, I'm going to teach you how to lead from the inside out. And when he said that, I knew exactly what he was saying, that I knew how to play the game on the outside. I knew how to put on a brave face and say the right things and do the work and push myself until even when I had run out of fuel, I could still push myself some more. But I didn't know how to lead. I had fallen out of alignment with leading myself, my relationship with him, my relationship with myself, staying connected and devoted, and the time that is needed to do that in my own home was important. And so he was pushing me to look at my life, and it was my decision how I wanted to start that journey of learning how to lead from the inside out was really up to me. And so I had to make some big decisions after that. One was I decided to put all projects on hold for a few months until I figured myself out. Because the thing is, everything with Lalanga comes from a vision, and I have that vision. Like my job title is Chief Visionary Officer. And what was really painful was for me is that I was losing sight of the vision. Once you lose sight of the vision and the joy, nothing flows. Creativity, money, opportunities, everything comes from love and joy, and it really starts from that love and joy with your connection with God, that love for yourself, that love for your family, love for your community. And so that was what happened in 2024.
Yeah, that's powerful. I love, you mentioned the word vision, visionary quite a few times here. I can tell it's a part of who you are, your DNA. It just reminded me of the scriptures, how it talks about, like, when there is no vision, the people perish. They're talking about our ancestors and how they voyaged across the sea, taking risks. They just held on to the vision, right? That's very powerful. If you were to go back again, what would you do differently in that whole journey, that experience? I love that concept around leading from within and leading outside. Like, what would you do again if you were to go back in time?
If I was to go back in time, I would doggedly and stubbornly hold on to that relationship with God, making sure that first and foremost, that relationship is the most solid relationship in my life. And then my relationship between myself, how I love myself, how I'm looking after myself and putting myself first is the most important thing, because looking after everyone else, creating all the products, finding the money flows from that. And often in Lalanga, there were times where we were literally running out of money, or we had run out of money, and we can't do anything without funding. And sometimes it would be ideas. And I remember there's lots of times where I'd sit there and I'd be like, God, where can I look? Where am I not looking? What am I not seeing? Where is the funding for this? What is the idea for this? And so the most important thing I think I would do is have a really strict boundary around your relationship with God, because all the ideas and the vision and the resources you need to deliver the work that He's called you to do comes from that. And also a strict boundary around knowing what you need to make sure that you are loving and honoring yourself, which is honoring God, and what you need to make sure that you are living in joy and gratitude and vision, so that anything you do flows out of that. So right now, after that, I will never do any work based on money. Like, money is not important to me. I've got a couple of stories about this. I've figured out what I really need for everything to flow. One is vision. I need a strong vision, and I need to be connected to my vision of what I want for myself, what I want for my family, what I want for my work, and also values. One of my values is joy and gratitude. If people ask me to do work that I know disconnects or disrupts that joy and that gratitude, I won't do it. And I'll give you a couple examples. In the last year, I've been offered 2 really cool jobs, right? Because growing up, you didn't have money, so you always thought money was the thing. And at the end of 2024, the funding in education was drying up. And so I remember I'd just come out of hospital and somebody got in touch with me and said, hey, we saw you through LinkedIn, and said, hey, Lesieli, can I give you a call? I've got this opportunity that we want to work with you with. And so the person gave me a call. They were from this private equity wealth investment company, one of the biggest in New Zealand. I didn't even know who they were, but I found out then. And so they basically said, we love your work and what you're doing with Lalanga. Now, our investors want to take a percentage of their profit and they want to invest it in initiatives for Māori and Pacific kids. And so we love what you're doing with Lalanga. Can you come and can you bring your frameworks and your experience and help us start a foundation? And I said, okay. And they said, so where's the funding coming from? And they said, well, every year our investors will give you $15 million to invest in Māori and Pacifica initiatives. And I thought, wow, because part of my problem with Lalanga is that looking for funding was a real problem and challenge. So then I thought, wow, this is cool. I never have to think about funding ever again. And I can do what I love, which is helping Māori and Pacifica kids. So we had our second meeting and kind of went over the details a little bit more. And then I kind of got a feel of what kind of environment I'd have to work in and all the things that I've created that I'd have to bring. I'd have to bring my resources, my IP, the learning resources. And I wasn't too happy about that. Anyway, but then it came to this talking about the salary. So we talked about the salary and he said to me, so can we talk about the salary? I said, yeah, sure, let's do that. And he said, okay, can you give me an indication of like what you kind of are thinking in terms of a starting salary that we can start negotiating at? And in my mind, I'm thinking, don't say anything, just wait. But in my mind, I had a number. I said, if you could, in my mind, I was thinking if they could pay me, say, $150, $180, it'd be a done deal. And so I said, oh, you tell me your number. And he said, oh, no, can you tell me your number? And I really had to pinch myself under the table to like, don't say the number. And then I said, no, you tell me your number so then I have an indication of if I'm starting in the right place. And he said, well, we're thinking mid-200s, 225,000. What do you think of that? And I was like literally pinching myself under the table thinking, wow. They value me at $225,000. That's their initial starting salary. That's where they want to start negotiating. I'd never been paid that my entire life. And I said, okay, that sounds good. Let me have a think about it and I'll come back to you with a number. But when I went away from that, I didn't feel like that was the right thing for me. because I thought about the environment that I'd have to work in. I'd be in this high tower in the city working with these polished, perfected people. And I just knew the joy and the gratitude just wouldn't flow, and they wouldn't be happy because I wasn't happy, and they wouldn't get the results because I couldn't produce the results. And in the end, I went back and said, I'm, really grateful for the opportunity, but I don't think I'm the right fit. And twice that's happened to me. One, like just recently, someone had offered me a similar role, and I had gone through multiple interviews with them, and it was all looking good. But the day before, it was a long weekend, I just knew that's not for me. And I was I felt really bad going back to them saying, I'm really sorry. I know you guys are really prepared to have me on your team, but I just can't do it. My call for education in Māori-Pacific is still there and is still burning bright. And so I just knew I could either say yes and just keep going and sit in the office and be unhappy and the work and the money wouldn't flow for them, or I could be brave and I could say to them, I just can't do it because it's not where I'm meant to be, and it's not the environment that can bring the best out of me.
That's powerful. Money's not everything, eh?
No.
Especially when it comes to happiness. And it's important that you know what brings you joy in life. And it sounds like you have that. What is your vision?
My vision is to ensure Māori and Pacifica kids have access to the opportunities, the resources they need to succeed in education. I believe education is the most powerful tool to change someone's life. It's my story. I've lived it. I know that it can change your life. I know that it can change the lives of your family around you. And that's my vision.
I love it. It's powerful. And I can feel how strong and how much conviction you have behind it, especially if you can say, 15 million or 200K or whatever it is, you got to weigh it up. Now, for those who struggle with having a vision for their life, for themselves, what advice can you give to people out there who need that vision, don't know where to start?
Sometimes the easiest place to start is think about what you don't want. What do you not want? Do you not want to be poor for the rest of your life? Do you not want to be uneducated? Do you not want to live in the state house or in the house that you're living in? Start with there. What do you not want? And once you list out what you don't want, then start giving yourself permission to dream about what do you want. There's a lot of things in my life right now, Bussy, that I'm like kicking myself, and I'm just like, I can't believe I'm experiencing that, because without knowing it, years ago, I said that I wanted these things. One of them is the home that I'm living in. I'm like, I can't believe I live in this house. But I'm like, but this is the house that I've always dreamed of. Like when I was a little girl, like having food, having nice clothes, and having a nice house to live in was like the most important things that I ever wanted. And I understand a home to me is like everything. Like waking up and not being in a leaking home or not being in a house, which really frustrates me, is really important to me. Embracing that vision and making sure opportunities flow and making sure that I'm happy is really important. But I would say start there, is look at what don't you want, and then give yourself permission to dream. And I'd say, and go even further, look at the people you're surrounding yourself with. Are the people that you are surrounding yourself with, the people in your circle, are they enabling you to be better, to strive for more, to dream bigger? Do they celebrate with you when you achieve big things? And I think that's one of the big takes for me that I've learned, is that my circle, I think when I was in my 20s, was so massive. Then in my 30s, it got smaller. And I'd say in my 40s, it's even smaller. Like I literally, and you ask my family, if you say anything negative around me, I'm like, don't want to hear it, get out, change your attitude. Because every day we are in a fight. Like we go to that petrol pump and we go and fill up our cars, and it's literally like over $200, and we go and stand in the supermarket aisles and we're paying like hundreds of dollars on this expensive food. And so I don't want to hear any negativity around me. I want money to flow, opportunities to flow, not just for myself, so that I can help other people. And I think making sure that the people around you are like iron sharpen iron, and they encourage you to embrace vision, is really, really important.
I love that how that environment started early for you. Like, you said as a young girl, you had this dream of having a nice house, a family, and all that. And just like listening to your story, I feel like a big part of the influence was from your upbringing and how your parents, they weren't preaching at you, but they were sharing like their belief and their confidence about your future, your potential. And I like that. Like, it's not enough to just have a vision. You've got to be in an environment where that can come true, where you can reach that. And they're surrounding yourself with positive people who believe in you and support you. So I think that's really great advice for our leaders around there is like, check your circle. Like, are you in the right circle? Do you have the right people in there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, there are, especially with leaders, man, you get a ton of critical and negative feedback. And I feel like one of the new experiences that I never expected from local board is the people that say just the most horrible things about you. I mean, a month ago, I went to a local board meeting and heard this rumor that had been spread about me. I'm not going to say what the rumor is, but it was just the way that it was told. The rumor itself was just awful and horrible. Like, that's some of the things that you have to put up with. But that's why, and I remember experiencing that and going back to my friends and saying, oh my gosh, I want to quit. I don't want to do this. And my sister, I called her and I said, I can't do this anymore. It's not even the rumor. It's just the people and the vibe. Like, I just don't want to be in that circle. And she said, oh my gosh, harden up, stop being a wuss. You need to go back in there, So I think being surrounded by the people that push you and that encourage you and inspire you and that understand your struggle but don't let you settle for less is so, so important.
Yeah, I love that. Can we talk about learning from our ancestors? Because I know that's something that you truly value and believe. Like, if we want to become better leaders, if we want to have a brighter future, let's look back. Let's look back to move forward. Like, can you tell us a little bit more around that?
It's really interesting. There is so much that we can learn from our ancestors. Let's just start from the beginning, wayfinding and them being chief explorers. We talk about and we look at, and I'm not saying this because I'm comparing a certain race, but we look at the Pākehā, the European race, as these amazing, incredible people with these amazing technological skills. But actually, our ancestors were there before these people were. Before they came up with their telescopes and their maps, we were already creating our own maps. We were the chief masters and experts of reading the sea, the sun, the pattern of the stars, the flight patterns of birds. I actually looked it up today because a few years ago I went to the Auckland Museum and they have this amazing Pacific exhibition with this massive canoe and all the different instruments that our ancestors used to navigate and explore. And when I went and saw that, I was just embarrassed. Embarrassed that we complain about our petty problems, yet our ancestors figured out a way to create something that we can't even create now. And we've got advancement of technology. The canoe in itself, the sail, the understanding of how everything works, and then the courage to know all the things that you can know, but there were so many unknowns, and still have the courage to step out and go into the unknown. We can learn so much about our ancestors, the grit and the determination they had, the grit and the determination that they were not going to settle for staying in the known. They wanted to know what was out there, and not just for themselves, but for the rest of their people. They were visionaries. I mean, I think about my great-grandfathers and my great-grandparents, incredible people who did not have nearly the tools that we had, or the money, or the education, but they were so savvy. I think about my mum, I think about my grandparents. Another thing about our ancestors is that they were really strategic. So we moved to New Zealand in the 80s, and a lot of the relatives that we stayed with, they were homeowners, like in the 80s. I think about now, we can't even get into our own homes. But these people were like strategic with how they got into their own home. I asked my auntie how my grandparents got into their own home in New Zealand, even my own parents. And they said that they had formed a collective. that there were 10 people, and what they'd do is that they'd invest in this first person's house and pay it off, and then they'd move to the second person's house and pay it off, and then they'd do the same. And that's how they got their house. And I think that's a value that we have forgotten right now, is one, how to embrace and hold on to the visionary spirit that our ancestors had. If our ancestors were here right now, they would not be standing at the pump complaining. They would not accept being poor. They would not accept not being at the table. They were such strategic people. And I think that's what we need to embrace, is that visionary spirit. Another thing that our ancestors did is they shared everything. The problem with what's happening right now that I see is that we have gone from this village collective mentality where we share everything. We do not collect things to keep it in our own savings banks and for ourselves. Everything that we have, we share. And part of my issue with how we live now is that we need to be careful as Pacific people that we don't get stuck in this independent mindset and way of living, and we forget how we actually need to live, which is in Lalanga, your resource and my resource and your skill and my skill, weaving together collectively to achieve outcomes for everyone, and that we don't forget that we were meant to be together, helping each other, talking with each other. I was talking to my mum about this a few months ago and saying, Mum, I never ever heard you say anything about menopause. Like, I'm like 40 now, and all they're talking about is perimenopause and menopause, and I'm like, I never saw you struggle. I never saw you have mental health issues. And she said, do you know what? I never even saw my mum have that. And I think it's because we lived in a collective that at night, we'd come home and the whole village and all the women would get together and we would lalanga and make things and create things and cook together and be together. And we were constantly talking to each other and we were constantly serving each other. I think about the story, because I was just in Tonga recently. My great-grandmother had there was just two of them. She had a brother. And my cousin was telling me that because my great-grandmother was the sister, when she got married, the brother and all his kids would come to her house and they would cut her lawns. They would go to the plantation and make sure she had a tokonaki, a basket full of food ready for Sunday. They would clean her house. And I'd say, and I remember talking to my cousin about this, and he said, yeah, that's just how they were back in those days. The brother, it was his duty and his honor to serve his sister, and he was so devoted to his sister that on Saturdays, his obligation was to come and serve his sister's family, right? And I remember going to Tonga as a kid and with my grandfather, and we'd go to the plantation and we'd pull out uwhi and we'd get mangoes and watermelon, and he'd put it in a basket and he'd say, okay, we're going to take my sister's tokonaki. And it would be on a Saturday night, and it'd be just food for the sister to eat on a Sunday. We need to be careful that we don't lose that service and that devotion to each other. We don't lose sharing the things that we have. That's easy for us to give. And I think this is how things flow, is when we're not, in Tongan they call it nema ma'u. We don't hold on to these things, but we're culturally aware of who needs what and what do I have that can help that person. We're generous people. We're not selfish people. We're generous people. And I was standing in the supermarket a few days ago, and a friend messaged me on Facebook, and she said I think she's a single mum with a few kids, and I haven't heard from her in years. And she messaged me and she said, oh my gosh, Lesieli, can we please catch up? I really need some coaching. So 6 years ago, I was a life coaching woman, and she said, are you still coaching? Can you help me? I literally need some coaching. And at the time, I was like, well, I haven't coached anyone in 6 years. But I messaged her back and I said, oh my gosh, absolutely. Should we catch up this Saturday? Because in my mind, I'm like, I have something that can change your life. I might not think it's ready. I might feel like I'm stale and rusty. But that's the mindset I think we need, is that if somebody needs something, give it to them, help them. And in the same way, people, I think it will flow back and come back to us too. So vision, living in a village in a collective, being generous, I think, in service is really important.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think there's so much we could learn from that. And I'm going to encourage our audience to listen to that again and take notes. So I'm not going to have to dissect all of that, because there was a lot of good gems there that you dropped. So thank you for sharing that, especially sharing experiences and stories. And I really appreciate that, because our people can relate and learn better when there's an example. or what I call like case studies. Look, we're going towards the end of our podcast here, and honestly, I've enjoyed this conversation a lot, and I admire like what you do and your passion and your vision as well. I guess one of the final questions I want to ask too, first one is, you believe, or you talk about how leadership is about knowing your seasons. And I love that you keep talking about our ancestors and culture and like, you can't change the direction of the wind. You can't change, the tide will rise when it rises, right? You can't change that, right? But you can change the sails with the wind, right? Yeah. So that's what I love about our people is that they learn how to adapt rather than working against nature. They leverage it, all right? And I think that there's something about that principle with leadership that we can apply, whether that's in the workplace or working in government. It's like, look, we might not be able to change the wind, but we can change the sails on our waka canoe. But like, yeah, tell us a little bit about that in terms of the seasons, like knowing your season, right, as a leader. How does that help leaders? And what do you mean by that?
Knowing your season. I think knowing your season has a lot with you being connected to something bigger than yourself, like God. I think this is why our spiritual values, I think, is so important with being a leader, because sometimes you think you know things, and then all you need to do is go and sit in a corner or just say, God, is this the right thing? If it is not, tell me. And also, if he says that this is the right season and you're meant to do that, but your heart doesn't want to do that, then you have to make a leadership choice. Do I do what I know, say, God is asking me to do in this season, or do I do what I want to do? And that's what I love about God, is he gives us choices. But I think as leaders, you also need to weigh up. Sometimes these choices are really easy. Like you just have to weigh up looking at the other people that are impacted by your decisions. And then that's why having good people around you giving you wisdom is really important. And you just need to sift through and understand, what should I do? And what's the next best step for me? And am I in the right place? Should I keep going or should I stop? One example is when I came out of university. I just finished a year of being student president. I was working for politicians and I had people knocking on my door to go into politics. And I was like early 20s at that point, and I already had one child and another on the way. And all I wanted to do was be a politician, because ever since I was a kid, I had this amazing dream of I just wanted to have a career, and I just wanted to have a career and do something with my life. And then I had these young kids, and I remember getting these offers and having this dream to be a politician, and I got job offers. And the thing is, I had young kids. And I remember asking around, what should I do? Because it would mean that I'd have to put my kids in daycare, and then I'd be working full time, and then my husband was running a business too. And then I had friends that were incredible and doing amazing things that I had started university with, and they were just off without any kids, without married, some of them. And I remember knowing in my heart that God did not want me to work. He wanted me to stay at home with my kids and spend those first, I'd say, 18 years were mostly around being a stay-at-home mum and raising my kids. And that was a really hard decision to make, because I was really ambitious and really driven. And when I asked around people that I trusted, they said, Lesieli, don't do it. The most important thing you can do is stay at home and raise your kids. Everything else can wait. Everything else will still be there. And I remember having to, sometimes accepting seasons doesn't come easy. But I think the blessing comes in trusting God and knowing that you may see this small thing here in that season, but God has a bigger plan for your life, and you need to trust him here, because this is a long journey and there's a bigger plan. Now looking back, my oldest is 18, and I'm just so, so grateful for the people that got around me and said, and pushed me to make the right decision and supported me through it. And I'm so grateful that I did at that time wrestle with that season. And God knows, when I was at home being a stay-at-home mum, I did not like it. Like, my husband and I laugh about it now, but it wasn't funny at the time. But he used to go to work and I'd be at home with the kids and he would come in the door and I would resent him and I would be so upset because I was jealous because I was at home with the kids and he didn't tell me when we got married that he would be out there running his business and I'd be at home with the kids. And I was so resentful that I felt like I was stuck at home with the kids while he was chasing his career. And sometimes he'd come home and he'd say, man, that was a stink day at work. I didn't want to go to work. And I'd be like, would you want to stay at home with the kids then? But I just knew it wasn't my season. But I look back now, my daughter's 18 and, I have 3 girls that I have 4 kids, 3 of them that I have really, really, really good relationships with. And that's because of honoring and being obedient to that season. And there are some seasons in work where in running a business where it's hard, but you know that this is where God wants you to be, and you've just got to guts it out and trust him and stay on path. And there are some times, like in 2024, where that season comes to an end and you need to take yourself and sit on the bench and hear yourself and wait and see, is God going to start another season or is that the end of the season? And in 2024, for me, I wasn't sure whether I was going to go back. Was Lalanga going to be the same? Was there ever going to be another Lalanga like it? I just didn't know. And when people ask me what's happening, I'd say, I'm literally just holding space because I don't actually know. But I need to work on myself. And so I think understanding seasons, staying connected with him, having the right people around you, and having the courage to just obey when it's really hard, especially when it's something that you don't want to do or you don't understand. But I think one thing we can trust is that God has a bigger plan for our life. And that's how I've always lived my life, is that knowing that even if it doesn't feel easy for me, he has a bigger plan and he knows, and he always wants the best for us. He's set us up for win. He has plans to prosper us and succeed us.
Love it. All right, my final question, Lesieli. One big takeaway. If there's anything from our conversation today that you want our audience to take away, what would it be?
Have a vision. Get a vision. Hold on to that vision. Embrace that vision. Vision for yourself. Vision for your money. Vision for the things you want to own in your life. Vision for the person you want to become. Vision for your kids. There's so many changes in the education system. Do you have a vision for your children, their success, who you want them to become? I even have a vision for my husband. I know, so lucky. But vision for the people around you. What's your vision for them? Hold on to that vision. And our brains are so clever. When you think and believe something, it finds a way for you to meet opportunities, to realize that vision. It's just the way it works. It's always the way it's worked for me. And lots of people, that are leaders say this too. But you need to have that vision. It's okay to be stuck now. Maybe you don't have much money. Maybe you're living a life that you aren't happy with. But have a vision. If you know what you want, opportunities will flow to you to meet that vision. And so that's my biggest take is don't get stuck in the problems that the Prime Minister is telling us about and all the different problems. Take a hold of the vision, the same thing that our ancestors did.
I love it. And no matter what the season, that vision will help you get through.
Absolutely.
I love it. Well, look, thank you so much for what you do. Thank you for leading the way that you do. Thank you for your passion to support our Pacifica and Māori, especially our rangatahi, to have good education, a good future. We're all cheering for you. We're all proud of you. Keep up the good work. Thank you for blessing us with your time and your knowledge and your leadership. We're much better for it, and we wish you all the best. Lesieli
Thank you so
Oliver.
much. And God bless you in your work too.
Thank you for tuning in to the Zeducation Leadership Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to follow and subscribe for more episodes like this.